If you think a prison break is impossible in modern America, this story will change that forever. It started with a sound so small that no one noticed. A faint metallic scrape hidden beneath the hum of generators and the clang of steel doors. Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York, a place built to hold the state's most dangerous criminals, was supposed to be impenetrable. But on the night of June the 5th, 2015, it became a stage for one of the most audacious prison escapes in US history. When the morning headcount began, everything seemed routine. Guards moved down the tiers calling out names, the same way they had every day for years. But when they reached cell 23 on the honor block, something felt off. The bed looked perfect. The blanket folded neatly, the pillow stacked high. Except when the guard tapped the sleeping inmate's shoulder, the entire head rolled off. It wasn't a head. It was a bundle of sweatshirts and cardboard shaped like a man. The cell was empty. By the time the alarm sounded, 2 inmates were already gone. Richard Matt and David Sweat. Matt was the older of the two. Charismatic, manipulative, a career criminal with the charm of a con artist and the eyes of a predator. Sweat was younger, quieter, and more calculating. Both were serving long sentences for murder. Together, they had done the impossible, vanished from one of the most secure prisons in the country. The discovery sent shockwaves through Clinton. Dozens of guards poured into the cell block, searching every corner. When they pried open a metal panel behind the bed, they found something no one could explain. A narrow hole leading into the prison's dark, winding guts of steam pipes and maintenance tunnels. The escape had been planned with surgical precision. As investigators pieced together the clues, one detail stood out. The clean edges on the metal cutouts. The holes weren't smashed or bent. They were sliced. Someone had used a hacksaw, but how had those tools gotten inside? The more they searched, the stranger it got. Hidden inside the cell walls, they found evidence of a carefully plotted route, a series of tunnels connecting cell blocks to the outer walls. The inmates had even left behind a crude map, drawn in pencil, showing their path through the underground maze. For days, no one could explain how they'd pulled it off. Then came the twist. A prison seamstress named Joyce Mitchell, a middle-aged woman who worked in the tailor shop where Matt and Sweat were assigned, came under suspicion. She had been friendly with the inmates, perhaps too friendly. At first, she denied everything. But when confronted with mounting evidence, the truth began to unravel. Joyce had smuggled tools into the prison, hacksaw blades, drill bits, and chisels, hidden inside packages of frozen hamburger meat, the very meat she delivered to the inmates' workshop every week. It was a plan months in the making. Richard Matt had seduced her emotionally, manipulating her with charm and flattery. He called her Tilly. He told her she was beautiful, that she deserved more than a quiet life in a small town. David Sweat, the brains of the operation, used her trust to make it happen. Together, the inmates built a psychological trap as tight as the one they planned to escape from. Joyce later admitted that she'd even agreed to be their getaway driver. The plan was simple. Once the men made it out, she would meet them outside the prison walls with a car and drive toward the Canadian border. But when the night finally came, fear consumed her. She never showed up. Still, the men didn't need her. That night, while most of the prison slept, Richard Matt and David Sweat made their final cuts. Crawling through the hole behind their bunks, they entered a narrow tunnel filled with steam and darkness. They followed the pipes for hours, hacking through metal barriers, squeezing through gaps barely wide enough for their shoulders. Eventually, they emerged beneath a manhole cover just outside the prison's north wall, steps away from freedom. When they lifted the cover and climbed into the cool night air, the world was silent. No alarms, no guards, no one watching. They vanished into the Adirondack wilderness. By dawn, helicopters filled the sky. Police roadblocks sprang up across the state. Every agency, from state troopers to the US Marshals, was called in. The governor himself, Andrew Cuomo, visited the scene, stunned by what he saw. This was not a walkout, he said. This was a sophisticated operation. For the first time in its 170-year history, Clinton Correctional had failed. 2 convicted murderers had slipped through its walls and disappeared. As search teams spread across miles of forest and farmland, one chilling question hung in the air. Were they already gone? Or were they hunting for whoever had betrayed them? The news spread like wildfire. 2 convicted murderers had vanished into the woods of upstate New York. The escape from Clinton Correctional wasn't just a prison break. It was a state emergency. By dawn, the small town of Dannemora was swarming with law enforcement. Helicopters hovered over rooftops, search dogs barked in the cold mist, and officers swept through forests with rifles drawn and flashlights slicing through the fog. The people of the North Country locked their doors for the first time in decades. Richard Matt and David Sweat were ghosts, leaving behind nothing but footprints, candy wrappers, and rumors. For days, police found signs they were one step behind. A broken branch here, a smudge of mud there. But the men were smart, methodical. They had planned this for months. They stole food from hunting cabins, changed clothes, and moved only at night. Every morning, search teams pushed deeper into the Adirondacks, while reporters camped on the edge of town, broadcasting the fear and fascination sweeping the country. The story had everything: danger, manipulation, betrayal. And at the center of it all was Joyce Mitchell, now in police custody, trembling under the weight of what she'd done. She admitted she had smuggled in tools and helped plan the escape, but she swore she never meant for anyone to get hurt. She'd been manipulated by Richard Matt, the charming older inmate who promised her a life beyond the prison walls. Investigators uncovered the messages he had written to her, subtle, emotional traps designed to make her feel special, seen, needed. She wasn't his partner. She was his pawn. Meanwhile, the manhunt grew desperate. Officers trudged through thick forest terrain in sweltering heat, sleeping in tents, swarmed by mosquitoes, chasing echoes through the trees. Then, after 2 weeks, they found the first real lead. A cabin break-in deep in the woods. Inside, there was food missing, an empty bottle of liquor, and a single bloody bandage. The trail was fresh. By June 26th, the chase reached its breaking point. A border patrol team spotted movement near Malone, just 40 miles from Canada. They surrounded the area, guns ready. Then, a single gunshot cracked through the air. When the dust settled, Richard Matt was down. He had been shot by authorities after refusing to surrender. The man who once charmed his way through life had met his end in the very wilderness he'd hoped would set him free. David Sweat kept running. But freedom in the Adirondacks was an illusion. The forest that had hidden them for weeks now turned against him. Hunger, exhaustion, and fear closing in. He ran through fields, past barns and fences, until his legs gave out. 2 days later, on June 28th, a state trooper spotted a figure near the tree line. Sweat tried to run, but one warning shot stopped him. The next brought him down. He survived. The manhunt was over. 3 weeks of chaos, thousands of officers, and millions of dollars spent. All for 2 men who thought they could outsmart the system. As news broke of the capture, Joyce Mitchell sat in her cell awaiting sentencing, her face pale and hollow. The woman who had dreamed of escape had become a prisoner herself. The legend of the Dannemora escape would live on, not as a triumph, but as a warning. Because no matter how clever the plan, or how desperate the dream, the walls of justice always find a way to close in. The manhunt was over, but the story of the Dannemora escape was far from finished. For the people of New York, it left a scar. A reminder that even the most fortified walls can crack when complacency and trust collide. In the weeks that followed, Clinton Correctional Facility became a fortress under siege, not from the outside, but from within. Investigators flooded the prison, inspecting every corridor, every pipe, every blind corner. What they found was chilling. For years, routine had replaced vigilance. Guards skipped checks, maintenance reports went unread. And in that complacency, 2 inmates had built their own exit, right under everyone's nose. Richard Matt was gone, his name forever etched into headlines as the manipulative artist turned fugitive. But David Sweat, now back in custody, was the final piece of the puzzle. Wounded and handcuffed to a hospital bed, he finally began to talk. In quiet, calculated detail, Sweat described how he and Matt had spent months cutting through walls, crawling through tunnels, and studying guard rotations. He spoke of their nightly ritual, slicing metal behind the hum of steam pipes, whispering plans through walls, and hiding blades in frozen hamburger meat. It was genius born out of desperation. But when investigators asked him about Joyce Mitchell, his tone changed. "She believed what she wanted to believe," he said. "Matt knew exactly how to play her." Joyce Mitchell's world collapsed under the weight of that truth. Once a trusted employee, she was now a symbol of betrayal. Her tearful testimony in court revealed the depth of manipulation. "I thought I was helping someone I cared about," she said softly, "but I was being used." She was sentenced to prison. The same walls she once worked behind now held her, a cruel symmetry that mirrored the story's bitter end. For the officers and townspeople, life never returned to Nay or Marl. Clinton Correctional became a place of scrutiny. Rules tightened, inspections increased, and the easy rhythm of small-town security vanished. The locals, once proud of the institution that gave their town identity, now spoke of it with unease. Documentaries, interviews, and dramatizations followed, turning the escape into legend. But behind the headlines and Hollywood retellings, the truth remained painfully human. 2 men who refused to accept their fate had manipulated one woman's loneliness to defy an entire system. And for 3 long weeks, they reminded America that even in the modern age, chaos could still slip through the cracks. David Sweat was transferred to a maximum security facility, locked down 23 hours a day. He spent his time writing, reflecting, and occasionally giving statements about how it all went wrong. His life, once consumed by escape, became defined by confinement. Joyce Mitchell served her time quietly. Years later, when she spoke publicly, her voice trembled with remorse. "I thought I loved him," she said, "but I didn't even know who he was." Outside the prison, the forest grew quiet again. The search camps were gone. The helicopters stopped circling. The only reminder of the chaos were the rusted fences and the scars left on the ground, footprints frozen in time. But for many, the story still haunted them. Not because of what happened, but because of how close it came to disaster. Governor Cuomo would later call it a wake-up call to every correctional system in America. It wasn't just about 2 escaped inmates. It was about vulnerability, the kind that doesn't come from weak walls, but from the illusion that danger can't exist behind routine. And somewhere, in the cold blue stillness of Clinton Correctional, a single welded patch covers the hole that once led to freedom. A reminder that even the smallest cracks can show.
Ange, everything. If you think this story was intense, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe for more true crime stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.